He will be there today in Garissa, one of the areas affected by drought, dishing out millions. Yet there's an even bigger crisis. I know many may say Rigathi Gachagua is just seeking political mileage from this, but there's definitely a reality on the ground, and that is that people are almost dying, yet the president will be going to that same area, but with a totally different agenda.
You know, Fred, when you say comparison, my English teacher will be very annoyed if you call that comparison. There's what they call comparison and what they call contrast. This is a contrast. It's like day and night. Day and night is not comparable, they're just contrast. If you look at what's happening here, it's unfortunate that the people who are in the same party, the deputy president and president, are now the ones we are comparing who stands for the truth and who is standing for a lie. I think we are in very healthy times now when you hear that. But look at it economically. What is it that can help the Northeastern? Because I don't want to go into the politics of it. Whether or not NYOTA Fund is what I call the stimulus for economy. You know, there's what they call a tool for poverty. What is the right tool to solve the poverty? It is not a handout, friend. It is not a handout in any way. I just want to take it back to when I grew up as a young boy. My father could tell me, go and till that my plot up there, then I'll give you 500 shillings. There's a time when he also gave me 500 shillings all doing nothing. Fred, you can compare those two things. The money that I went and I worked and I was given, I felt more entitled to that money. I protected that money much. At the same time, there was what's called exchange of value. My father get his part of the plot dug so that he can plant maize or something. Me, I get 500 shillings. Economy believes that money is a medium of exchange. Nobody should just give you money for the sake of it because that causes inflation. For example, if it is true actually that NYOTA Fund is money being given to people, do you know that can cause inflation? That's why as an economist, I don't have to go to Northeastern. I don't have to travel with the president. This money is fake, it's not being given. And let me tell you, Fred, just a few numbers here.
No, but people are receiving the money, Professor.
No, Fred. Let me ask a question.
Receive the second tranche in a
You
while.
go to church.
The question now is,
you go to church.
Should that be what the president is doing in Northeastern?
Fred, let's look at evidence here. In God we trust, the rest bring evidence. You, Fred, you go to church, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Do you know any church member of yours who have received that money? You are in a WhatsApp group for people who are looking for money, who are poor, who wants fundraising, who are hungry, who are dying. Have you heard someone saying, today I've received mine? You are in a family. Do you know any family member of yours, or your relative, or your neighbors where you grew up, or your friends went to school who received this money? So Fred, you want to tell me that this money is so selective that no one in your network receives it? Do you know, I give an example. This money is targeting around 400,000 Kenyans, isn't it? Do you know how many policemen you have in Kenya? Around 150,000. But you know a neighbor, you know a church member, you know someone who is a policeman, isn't it? How comes 150,000, you can know someone in that network, but 400,000 people you don't know? The second evidence I have for you, let's go to Saint Mohammed, who is in State House, go to his Twitter handle on 16th of January. He posted that they have given money to 58,000 Kenyans in 26 counties. You understand? One of the counties being Makueni, Kitui, Machakos, and the rest. Now, let's do the maths, isn't it? 58,000 people who have businesses, isn't it? NYOTA Fund should go to business, which means that in those 26 counties, there are 58,000 businesses. If you divide that by 26, it means for every county, there's 2,500 companies thereabout. You get me? If you take that to sub-county level, there is over 780 companies in every constituency in Kitui, for example, Machakos. Now, do you want to tell me you can have 750 businesses in one constituency and we have no employment in Kenya? Okay. Fred, these things does not math. Okay. It doesn't math, and I can tell Kenyans that this is a scam of the highest order.
And I don't want, Professor, for us to focus too much on criticizing the NYOTA Fund. It's the optics that I'm worried about, Fwamba, that as a response to the kind of crisis that we are facing, he's going there instead to launch the NYOTA Fund. This is something that could have been delayed. This is something that could have come at another different time. Ideally, the president should not just be working, but also being seen to work, because he carries the aspirations of the entire country. For someone who's dying, of someone whose parent is facing starvation, should the NYOTA Fund be the lead idea on this 2-day trip? Shouldn't it be as a major response by government to the drought situation?
Thank you, Fred. I do not think that's accurate as far as the newspaper is concerned, talking about death and at the same time splashing millions. Of course, money is getting to the Kenyans. So there is no problem when there is money available. In fact, it's an advantage. Is that an added advantage that apart from the government initiatives towards the issues that are at hand, there's also that ongoing activation of the NYOTA program, whereby young people who don't have the level of education like Professor Ogola, or people who do not have money at the level of Professor Ogola, are getting money from the government to start small businesses. Some of us are unable maybe to locate those people who are getting those monies because we are not at that level. You know, the kind of bracket that is being targeted are people who have low income and people with education, not to the level of Professor Ogola. Then I also want us not to live in denial, because the drought situation is a natural calamity, and it's not the first time it's happening. It is something that has happened for many years during dry seasons. Of course, when you look at the northern Kenya... And
government response has always been criticized.
Progressively. If you look at the past, you realize that the challenges that existed are like lack of water resources, dams, and the initiatives that have been put in place right now by the government. I heard the president announcing that they have intentions to build 50 dams across the country, especially the arid and semi-arid areas. So if you look at the problem we are having right now, it did not start today. We must also appreciate the efforts the government is putting in place right now. And we should not lay blame of the problems that have existed, including these natural calamities, to the current regime. What is it that the previous governments used to do? Like when I see someone like the former deputy president uttering words like he woke up today and all of a sudden is blaming the government, the current government, of all the problems that are happening, then he looks like he's out of touch or deliberately trying to spin something that is so critical that is supposed to be looked at.
This is the same administration that promised 100 dams across the country in response to such challenges. So you're saying we shouldn't hold this administration to account, even on some of its promises, given the challenges that this country knows it faces regularly?
I think last week, Fred, you were hosting the CS for Special Programs and Public Service, Honorable Ruto, and I think he gave his own account. I watched you, and I think he gave his own account of what the kind of measures the government has put in place to deal with those issues. So there are usually short-term measures and then long-term measures. For short-term measures, I think the government always supplies relief food to support those families. But long-term measures have always been initiated in terms of construction of dams.
Is it the right time, Wakili, to give the NYOTA Fund to someone whose family is facing severe starvation? Would it directly try starting a business when the main need there is food?
Yeah, I think, Fred, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's good if you send any money to a household. That is okay. I mean, there is money in that household. On that, I agree with my colleague when he says, I mean, we cannot criticize the government about the NYOTA Fund. I think the NYOTA Fund was not drought-based, but it is a program that was supposed to help young people to achieve their business intentions. And it is true. I've actually encountered several people who have earned, from NYOTA Fund. But why are we fixated on NYOTA Fund? That is where the problem is, because there is a notion that the government can resolve all societal problems, and that is not right. When you assume that William Ruto will make sure there is no drought, that is a wrong imagination.
No, that is not.
But you see,
we've not even suggested that. Allow me to counter that, because
there is this contestation.
The only reason we're talking about NYOTA Fund is that on his 2-day tour of the northern eastern region, where there's severe drought, he's going to launch the NYOTA Fund.
Yeah? I think the timing is wrong.
He can launch it any other time.
In that, I agree entirely with you. The timing is wrong. But you ask me a question: is it right to give money to such people right now. I think it's okay. If Fred, you send some M-Pesa to me right now, here in the studio, I'll be very happy. I mean, you could send it also another time.
If I send you money for school fees today or for hospital bill, and it's specifically for the hospital bill, but you're hungry at home, will that money help the intended need?
Okay, I understand, Fred, where you're going, but allow me to buttress my point. We have development partners in this country. We have climate change problems. I want us to look at it in the bigger sense, that it is not the government that can implement problems of a drought nature so that it is true.
If it's not the government, then who?
We have development partners. We have huge sums of money lying somewhere to deal with climate change, Fred. And instead of this being given to several, to hard-hit areas directly, this money is coming to government. Give me a minute. This money is coming to government, and government is playing patronage to the system, the people who work with government. That is where the problem is. So that instead of letting this money go directly to the people, they are talking about the NYOTA Fund. The NYOTA Fund itself has no problem. But you see, instead of allowing citizens to access, these climate change funds directly, it's coming to, OP. And after it comes to OP, it is channeled in such a manner that your Northeastern is given like a gift. Then you are saying there are 26 counties somebody has, alluded to from State House. That money, how do you choose that it is people of Taita Taveta and it's not the people of Isiolo? It is because of government patronage. And I keep saying that the government cannot be a solution to the societal problems we have. It is in fact it is the people themselves who must come up and create solutions for their problem.
If the government is not going to offer solutions to the pressing needs that the Kenyans face, then why do we have a government in the first place?
Fred, I think that the most important question that Wakili is trying to refer to is not blaming the NYOTA Fund, but what is the government priority? Now, the question we should be asking, if you are the president, Fred, and you have 5 billion shillings, where would you put that money? Let us not just look at the NYOTA Fund, because this is what we call zero.
And once again, allow me to clarify, because we are not opposed to the NYOTA Fund, and we've supported NYOTA Fund as it goes across the country.
I agree.
The question is the timing of this one. A 2-day visit by the president to a place where it is ravaged by severe starvation.
Yes, Fred.
And then you go launch.
Your point is, I'm trying to say, let's look at it just from the question that if you have 5 billion shillings, because NYOTA Fund is a 5 billion shillings, where will you take that money? I've just done my economic analysis here, and I find, for example, what is troubling Kenya is that Kenyans have no access to credit, isn't it? Some businesses, if they get access to credit, they can easily be able to employ some people than throwing this money saying you are giving them to people who actually cannot run a business, or at least, even if you give them money, what business can you begin with a capital of 50,000 and run? Let's be honest, I criticize Hustler Fund on the same basis.
Depends at your level.
Mm-hmm. You understand? I heard them saying, you can buy eggs and sell here. That is not a business, Fred. Let's be honest, and let's be honest ourselves, isn't it? If you go even to the place they call Singapore, no one gave NYOTA Fund in Singapore. You understand? No one gave Hustler Fund in Singapore. We know what you can inject in the economy. For example, if you take 40% of that 1 billion shillings and just put money on SME to expand themselves, lower their credit, isn't it? Do incentives, for example. Another one I was talking about, the issue is agro-processing. If you put 30% of that money in agro-processing, those are alternative investments that can actually spur the economy. But when you take this money and give it out, isn't it? How is it coming back? You understand?
Okay.
When there's somebody you give some money that's not come back, you don't know how to come back. If you go to a bank and get credit, and you know very well you're going to pay back that money, you use this money very differently from when you are just given. Hustler Fund was a failure whereby the repayment rate was horrible. We lost almost 500 billion shillings there. And I went to court to challenge Hustler Fund. And I'm not speaking from the blues, you understand? So let's be honest here. The alternative ways to spend this money is quite different for me.
Okay.
And then let's talk about, for example.
And without the risk of going away, because I don't want us to discuss NYOTA Fund or the good things or the bad things that could be there. It is about the drought situation. That is what we are talking about.
Fred,
Yeah? The NYOTA Fund it just happens to be, because there are other issues that the president is being accused of doing, is splashing millions on political events at State House.
In this country,
we are not talking about that.
In this,
can we You know, we have a lot of money that actually circulates around the globe to deal with such issues of drought. My point, I just want to highlight that one. We have UNICEF is interested in how things happen. The FAO, the Food Organization. And there are many humanitarian organizations in the world that are interested to mitigate such situations.
And not a government.
My point is, no, these are not governments, but these are serious institutions, equivalent or even more than what governments do. But my point is, Fred, when we take this money and we give it to the government, which is like Kenya, heavily party politics and a tribal, grouping, what happens is genuine people suffering from drought in northern Kenya don't get that benefit. That's my point. Okay. And the government believes that for you to be considered a good citizen, you must work with the government. And because of that, so the people running the system tend to distribute this money to people who they feel will support them. And that is where, in my case, the problem is.
Yes, because final word on this, because the issue is how government is spending money, including at State House, hosting aspirants and giving them, according to this paper, 10,000 shillings each. Forget about NYOTA Fund, yes? Yet there's a serious problem elsewhere. Shouldn't we be attending to the crisis first?
First, I want to address the issue of 50,000 shillings. There are businesses that can be at different levels, Professor. And there are even people who run businesses with a capital of 10,000 shillings. So 50,000 means a lot to certain people, just like a billion shillings can mean a lot to someone like you who is a presidential candidate. Therefore, they say do not despise humble beginnings. Now, getting back to the issue you've raised, Fred, I insist that there's no need for us to stop doing one thing at the expense of the other. We can be able to do all these things concurrently. Ensure that the programs of the government are running, like the NYOTA Fund and other projects are running, and at the same time, we are responding to humanitarian crisis that has emerged. Because in 2009, remember, we had these Kenyans for Kenyans, something like that, where people raised money because of the drought situation. Now, what we should be talking about is having real sustainable means of avoiding such situations in future. Remember, people keep on referring to the session paper number 10 of 1965 as the basis of discrimination of the arid and semi-arid lands, especially northern Kenya, in favor of the arable lands. All previous governments have focused developments within these so-called high potential areas. Even yesterday I saw a gazette notice by the CS for Treasury. You look at the distribution of funds in the name of urban development, is so much focus on the places that have already been developed. So we need to reorganize our policies so that they are uniform. There is equity all over the country. And I think that's what President Ruto has tried. I met someone from northern Kenya the other day who said that the first time they experienced what they call independence was in 2022 when they elected President William Ruto, who has given them more attention than any other government before. All right. And the dams that are being constructed, in my opinion, would be helpful to the country. Because those areas, during rain seasons, they experience heavy flooding, like in Mandera. They experience very heavy flooding. And during drought season, they are the same people who experience those problems. Therefore, if we have dams constructed and water reservoirs existing, we'll have irrigation activities within those areas and we'll be able to have sustainable solution.
It's either comparison or a contradiction.
Contrast.
Contrast, a proper contrast. What the president is doing with the money available to him and what's happening to our brothers and sisters in the northeastern part of this country. Let's take a short break.
And you talked about State House.
Allow us to take a short break. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we continue with this conversation, or we move on to the bigger conversation about this feud between the Council of Governors and Senators. You're watching Morning Cafe.